guys, so I really want to talk about this. I think it's important and could possibly lead to something even more important in the future. So maybe you've heard the news, but the United States government, through Trump's deft negotiating hand, has taken 10% ownership of Intel, the largest American chip foundry. Historically, this is pretty rare. This has only happened previously in times of emergency, like the 2008 financial crisis, where America got percentage stakes in some of the major banks they were bailing out, then eventually would sell those stakes. But this is kind of an uncapped, no emergency situation. We're just taking a large ownership stake with the government in a private company. And I want to talk about what that means. I want to talk about why it happened. I'm talking about where it's going forward, okay? First, we got to talk about chips. These kind of chips, not the kind that you eat. Very important. Now, this is kind of a base primer. You might already know this, but it's worth saying, okay? Some people, like Jensen Huang and NVIDIA here, design the chips, and some people, some companies, make the chips. It's like TSMC in Taiwan. They have these big, gigantic foundry clean rooms where they actually make the chips, okay? So designing and making, producing are different things. You might design it here in America, but then it would be made in Taiwan. Now, let's stretch this out a bit and notice who's on the design side. So the biggest chip designers in the world are like NVIDIA, AMD, Apple, Qualcomm. Now, all of these companies are American. Pretty cool. Good for America. All right, we have a lot of world-class chip designers. But who actually makes the chips? Well, pretty much all these companies use TSMC, actually. If I'm using specific examples, pretty much all these companies use TSMC. TSMC has a massive market share, so it's all made in Taiwan. But behind TSMC, you might find companies like Samsung in Korea or SMIC in China. And then way down the list, not able to make the latest and greatest chips, not even able to make very good chips, to be quite honest. Really bringing up the caboose, the rear, is Intel. That is our American version of a chip foundry. This is not ranked top 4. Intel is even farther down. Intel is the biggest American chip foundry that can actually produce chips. They've had a very rough past few, honestly, decades. Since their peak and their prime, they've been on a slow but steady downward spiral. They've lost engineering leadership. They no longer can design the latest and greatest. They have process errors. They're late to new technologies, and they've slowly but surely been losing market share, losing customers, getting worse. And they've fallen behind, the world leaders in being able to create the great chips. This is a problem because being able to make the chips is probably, in the world we're heading towards, even more important than being able to design them. The ownership of the production of the chips is very important. Like, for example, if TSMC were cut off to the rest of the world, it would cripple all of these companies. It's very important for national security reasons to have some ability to create your own chips within at least your sphere of influence. So both presidents of the recent last 10 years, Trump and Biden, have known this. It's not a one-sided Republican or Democrat thing. Both political parties in America have recognized this. This is Joe Biden stunned.
Taiwan is just America, yes, but also no. In the sense that, like, while it is an island designed for American interests, it can very quickly no longer be as dominated by American interests, especially as global instability and America's influence around the globe waning. I think a major issue that these guys see, that's why I brought up the national security part of this puzzle. When you look at China's rise as a superpower, you realize that maybe the situation is not so great. Maybe the situation is not so sustainable. All of those factories could one day very quickly be factories that are under the protective banner of the People's Republic of China. When you say Intel got $108 billion in stock buyback since 2005, this is exactly the type of shit that should be made illegal, is my point. TMSC has fail-safes where if Taiwan is invaded by China, they destroy the equipment China would want. Yeah, except who's to say that this will happen at gunpoint? You know what I mean? That's another real thing that the American State Department is worried about. That's why the U.S. tariffing Taiwan and stuff like that is actually being done so that they forcibly switch production to U.S. soil.
Intel chips by their old CEO. Sleepy Joe, in addition to Trump, have said this is important for national security reasons. And during Biden's administration, they had a thing called the CHIPS Act. And the CHIPS Act was designed to use government money as grants to get chip companies to build in America. Pretty much all in Arizona. So the idea was we give you grant money, you create American jobs, you build in America. They gave grant money to TSMC to go build in America. They gave grant money to Intel to try and catch up in America. The idea was like, we're going to give money to all these different areas and just try to get some chip building in America. That's the idea of the CHIPS Act. And they said basically what I've said here. We rely on a very small number of factories in Asia for almost all of our sophisticated chips. It's untenable and unacceptable. It's an economic security problem. It's a national security problem.
Yeah.
And we're going to change that. Okay, that was the plan.
Why did the chatter bring this up? I already said that this was the major issue here. You made it seem like I would be in disagreement with Atrioc so far, and this is exactly what I said so far.
And there was some success. This is a TSMC plant in Arizona that I believe just went operational this year, or maybe it's just about to go operational this year. However, don't get me wrong, there's still problems. They were able to use the money to convince them to build here. The problem that TSMC says is that Arizonans don't like to work as hard as people back in Taiwan. They've had a lot of logistical challenges, but the main part is that
I don't think this is also accurate. I mean, this is like, bro, this is literally, no, stop. This is Orientalism through and through. I think, no, they just don't have the proper training. Like, that's it. It literally is law. Stop. No. It's literally just the notion that like the Oriental mind, the mind of those from the Orient, is actually more servile and better at building chips. They have tiny fingers. Like, that's all bullshit. It's just it's a matter of training. I think it's overall a good explainer on the situation. He's saying that's what the TSMC said, by the way. Later on, it gets into the Trump aspect. Yeah, I know. So far, I'm in agreement here. I don't have any disagreement here. But yeah. Americans don't like to work as hard as any other country. It's not Orientalism. That's the whole point of the U.S. economy, is to extract so they don't have to work. This is the reverse of the idea that like American workers are just like wholly incapable of doing these things is wrong. It's just that we don't have the same time frame. We don't have the same training. We don't have the same time frame. That's it. Like, you don't have the same technical, precise manufacturing training necessary. These things are very delicate. It's not true. Seriously, the truth is it's too expensive to train. This is what literally every company is doing. A lack of training makes us undesirable, not worth the money or labor costs. Yeah. And the other side of this is that it takes a long ass fucking time for them to get to the same productive output that you have in Taiwan, because they've been doing this for a very long time. Okay, that's it. No human being is better at like one kind of labor than another. That's just bullshit. Okay, what are we doing? Fucking race realism right now? What are you wrong? Are you crazy? And it's not even a byproduct of like people's material conditions or something. It's just simply not enough time, not enough experience. Because like ultimately these are incredibly precise machines that you need. This is high precision manufacturing. Okay, this is something that Tim Cook has talked about with respect to utilizing Chinese factories as opposed to like bringing production all the way back to the United States of America, especially at a time when like Chinese manufacturing is also costly, right? It's no longer like as cost affordable as an alternative as it once used to be. But the reason why Tim Cook says we'll continue to do this in China as opposed to the United States is because the amount of training necessary until you get to a competent level in the American workforce takes time. Okay? That's it. It takes time. It's too much time. And there is going to be a runway where there is too many points of failure in that process. Because when you train a new labor force to be able to do high precision manufacturing, the first couple of years, there's going to be a lot more failure than a labor force that has been doing this and has been trained for the past couple of decades at this point and have actually improved their productive output as time has gone as you know, as there are new methods that are being implemented. It's that simple. It would require almost a decade to catch up. Do you understand?
Arizonans don't like to be on call 24 hours to, you know, for this insanely detailed process and have to show up. It's a little more complicated than that, but again, that is the core of it, is they can't find the talent they can from Taiwan as they can in Arizona. But it is still moving forward. They're still building, they're still planning to be a production facility for Apple's chips, not their latest and greatest, but some of Apple's mobile chips are going to be built in Arizona at TSMC Lab. So there's things happening. Now, while this was happening, while this CHIPS Act was happening, Trump was very against it. Trump said overall, the CHIPS Act should be killed. All the money should be used to pay down debt. Just take the money, pay down debt. Now listen, it's a complicated situation. You could make the argument that the CHIPS Act was possibly ineffective, or the money could be used elsewhere, and maybe paying down the debt's a decent idea. Let's see if he sticks to that idea of paying down the debt once he gets into the office, because as we know, we are now in the Trump era, and Trump was right about everything. So here we are, 2025. First year of you know, Trump 2. This is the new Intel CEO, Lip-Bu Tan. I will say, people say this guy's gonna be better. He's got an engineering background. He might be a better CEO than the last one. However, I've heard this before. They've gone through like 4 CEOs and
Tim Cook said that the output of engineers in the U.S. is annually like a college auditorium or something, and that China is like several football fields packed. Yeah, there's that too.
In late 2024,
like, this shit doesn't happen overnight. You can't just like fucking whip people up and get them to all of a sudden, to get them to almost magically overnight become precise, like highly skilled, precise manufacturers of these kinds of chips.
5 years or something. The last guy was also from an engineering background. They said the same thing. He's going to turn it around. He's the new engineer that's going to come in and fix Intel. Intel's in a really bad spot. There's a deeper rot at this company than just swapping out a new CEO. But this is the new Intel CEO.
Yeah, it's not just training, it's expertise. No, that's what I'm saying as well. Yes, I'm couching that under training, but that's my point. Exactly. Even once the training process is complete, like a guy a guy who has been working at chip manufacturing at a manufacturing plant for fucking 5, 6, 7, 10 years is going to be infinitely better at doing that than a guy who just got trained and has been working on the job site for a year.
Yep. And he comes in this year and he's going to turn Intel around. But Trump this month, August, has some things to say about him. Trump says this guy is highly conflicted and should resign over his ties to China. I think Trump is saying that because he looks Asian. Because he's not from China. Yeah, I mean, he's invested in some Chinese companies, don't get me wrong, but he's not from China. He's Malaysian, so. But anyway, Trump says this, and then notably says, the CEO of Intel is highly conflicted and must resign immediately. There is no other solution to this problem. Now, this is a very important statement because this is this month. This month, Trump has said there is no other solution to the Intel CEO being conflicted than him resigning. That's it. We figured it out. There's only one solution. Now, this caused a bit of a chaos at Intel. Intel's leadership was in a panic. The president of the United States is saying we have to have our CEO step down and then we're infiltrated by the Chinese. So they said, okay, they talked to some experts, some Trump experts, and they decided they've learned the following. Trump loves meeting with CEOs, even those who he's attacked publicly. Trump just likes deal making. He likes being a mover and shaker. He likes being personally involved. People come in, they talk to him, he can get something out of them. He likes this, okay? So they decide they're gonna fly out this CEO to go meet with Trump to convince him that he's not a Chinese spy and the US government has a long-term interest in bolstering Intel. Surprise, surprise, it works. Days before, there's no other solution than him resigning. After one meeting, now he's like this. He came in, he saw me, we talked for a while. I liked him a lot. I thought he was very good. I said, you know what? I think the United States should be given 10% of Intel. And he said, I would consider that. So a massive pivot. From a few days ago, you're like, he's got to get out. And so now you meet him once. Oh, you know what? I love Intel and you, and I want 10%. Between this calling him to resign and this meeting, there was one middle part where Trump said, hey, what if we got TSMC to buy 49% of Intel? Because TSMC is good and Intel is bad. So we'll just sell 49%, we'll force them actually to buy 49% of Intel, and they'll make Intel good. Now, the problem with this, I mean, there's a couple. One of the main ones is that TSMC has zero interest in doing this. They don't want to do it, and you can't have the American president just tell them who to buy or who to invest in, because they don't want Intel. So then Trump was threatening to put higher tariffs on Taiwan as a whole unless TSMC, a private company, bought Intel. It was just getting messy. So thankfully, the Intel CEO charmed him in this meeting and went with this 10% plan. So then Trump tweeted this: "It's my great honor to report the United States of America now fully owns and controls 10% of Intel." Again, I'll get into it. I'll get into the whole socialism, capitalism, whatever. People have got so many things tied into that. I'll just explain why I think this might be a bad idea, okay? A great American company that has an even more incredible future. I negotiated this deal with Lip Bhutan, the highly respected, by the way, this is weeks after saying he was a Chinese spy that needs to step down. He's actually the highly respected chief executive officer of the company. The United States paid nothing for these shares. Now, I highlighted this part in red, and we're going to skip ahead real quick. This part's highlighted in red because it's called a lie. The United States bought these shares. It is unclear why Trump said the United States did not pay anything for this stake. The government bought 433 million shares at $20.47 each. They spent $9 billion. Taxpayer money. We took the money and we bought it. They certainly didn't give them to us. It's a public company. They can't even run without printing more. I mean, we bought them. I just want that to be clear. I mean, you could say that's the money they used. I do want to, give the full picture here. So there was $9 billion, this amount of money, that was left over from Biden's CHIPS Act. And the reason it was left over is because Biden's CHIPS Act had certain milestones that Intel had to reach to unlock the money. Intel did not reach the milestones. Intel was slow and shitty. So there's money left over, $9 billion in the CHIPS Act that wasn't distributed. So Trump said, I'll use that money because it's basically free. It's kind of girl math. Because you could use it, right, to pay down debt. Like you said. You said kill the law and use the excess funds to pay down debt. You could use leftover money if you wanted to do that. But instead, you're like, now it's already allocated. We'll just use it to buy 10% of Intel. The shares are now valued at approximately $11 billion. This is a great deal for America and also a great deal for Intel. Building leading edge semiconductors and chips, which
Yeah, I mean, so Intel didn't earn the money, so we gave it to them anyways. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like the earning the money shit is also bullshit. It's just never, we offer grants and subsidies all the fucking time to companies for a million different reasons. I'm not making an assessment about like Intel's stock performance or Intel as a company. I'm not saying that at all. I'm simply stating that the way that Trump is dealing with this issue, or rather, like on principle, the notion that the American government demands more in exchange, demands ownership stakes in exchange for grants is not a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. And ironically enough, I think there needs to be more of this, but also with like follow through, with real follow through on reasonable provisions that are implemented that improve, that create good paying jobs. For example, the notion that like, yeah, you're going to get training, you're going to have, you're going to subsidize people's housing, like adding that into the contract as a part of that ownership stake would be, in the perfect scenario, in the perfect world scenario.
Which is what Intel does. I wouldn't say leading edge, but yes, they do this, is fundamental to the future of our nation. And I do agree it's important. At the end of the day, the core part of this that you have to concede on is that it's really risky having so much of the economy routed through Taiwan, which is again at odds with its closest neighbor, China, at all times. Like it's just risky. You really do want to diversify chip production outside of Taiwan. It makes sense. All right, I will give that. I don't know about this strategy, but I will give that. Now, criticism of this deal came in pretty quickly, and it came in from all over the political spectrum. Republicans, I will say, a lot of them don't say anything. They'll never bring anything up. But many of them who had previously criticized Obama, for example, for taking stakes in banking companies after 2008 and 2009, also criticized, like a Rand Paul might have criticized this. Gavin Newsom said, "All hail Chairman Trump. With his glorious 10% purchase of Intel, the Socialist Republic of America enters a bold new era of government-run businesses." I mean, it just is a departure from normal ways of doing business. And I will say this, someone I do deeply respect had a positive statement on this, and I want to give the upside here. I want to give a fair, nuanced take. I respect Bernie Sanders quite a bit, and he actually, I would say it wasn't like overwhelming support, but he supported this. He favored the Trump plan to take stake in Intel or chip makers. And he said this: "If microchip companies make a profit from the generous grants they receive from the federal government."
This was literally Bernie's provision. He wanted this to happen with the CHIPS Act and the IRA as well. Okay? Now, it's almost like the tariffs, right? Because on principle, I'm not opposed to trade protectionism. Okay? I'm not opposed to trade protectionism at all. The issue is you have to have a robust manufacturing base that is competitive with the international market to protect. You have to have some trade to protect if you want to do trade protectionism. So Trump's execution on the international tariffs, using tariffs as a tool to wield to, I don't know, demand that European countries put a higher percentage of their GDP into like purchasing American weapons under NATO security contracts or all this other shit. Like, it's been idiotic. It's been fucking stupid. Especially when there is a clear-cut absence of trade to protect in the United States of America. Without building out a manufacturing base, you can't just like start demanding that like people buy our shit, for example. So I see this in the same vein. As far as the method, I do not have an issue with the method. I would love to see a competent Democrat leadership do this exact same thing. Having said that, however, do I think that Trump is simply going to use his ownership stake to not really add necessary provisions for labor protection and to create good paying manufacturing jobs in the United States? Of course, I don't think he's going to do that. He is a fucking real estate developer.
The taxpayers of America have a right to a reasonable return on that investment. And I just want to explain why I might disagree, even though I vouch for, I fully support Bernie Sanders' character, and I think maybe there's something I'm not seeing here. There's a couple things that go wrong when you have the government owning particular shares in a certain one company. Number one is that if there is ever like a government contract that you would like to be awarded to the best company, the company that can do it for the best price or the most innovative, in historical examples, it'll go to the company that the government owns 10% of. There's a big conflict of interest.
And it's not just Bernie either, for the record. There's another political figure that's even more technocratic in their approach to policymaking that a lot of liberals like even more than Bernie Sanders. Her name is Elizabeth Warren. This was a dual provision from both Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders. Okay? So one must ask the question, why? Like I've always said, I'm always going to call balls and strikes. If Donald Trump does something that is technically in the right direction, I'm not going to immediately attack the administration. I will be cautious, of course, because of who Trump is and what he has done so far. But you have to think, why is it that all of the conservative commentators are shitting on Trump over this when they rarely ever shit on Trump for anything? And why is it that this initiative was originally backed under the Biden administration by fucking Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren? Here's a Barron's.com article. The Trump admin's plan to take an equity stake in Intel might have been a surprise to many investors in recent weeks, but the idea wasn't a new one. It was first heard in the most left-leaning parts of the U.S. Senate. When the CHIPS Act was being debated, as I also told you, this is what happened in 2022, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren proposed an amendment that would have turned the grants into equity stakes in the firms receiving money. It never reached the Senate floor for a vote. I am glad the Trump administration is in agreement with the amendment I offered 3 years ago, said Sanders, a frequent opponent of Trump's policy, said in a statement. Taxpayers should not be providing billions of dollars in corporate welfare to large profitable companies like Intel without getting anything in return. Warren, another Trump foe, added, Donald Trump seems to have stumbled on an idea that I pushed years ago to promote corporate accountability. Meanwhile, Trump ally and libertarian Senator Rand Paul called the plan a step towards socialism. On Monday, Wall Street Journal's free market focus editorial page wrote, statism is gaining currency on the political left and right, resulting in a bizarre fusion of ideas. In a request for comment about the unusual political alignment, White House spokesman Kush Desai said, Washington, D.C.'s blind commitment to consensus orthodoxy that ignored the realities of the world is exactly why Americans in America were left behind. Remember what I said? If America wanted to actively compete against China, it would have to become more like China. This is basically 1% in the direction of becoming more like China. That's the irony of it all. Okay? It's just like not even 1%, 0.1% in the direction of having more control over corporations. No, it's not technically 10%. I'm saying in the grand scheme of things, if you look at the entire productive forces of the American government or under the banner of the American nation, it's like 0.01% initiative. The CHIPS Act passed Senate, 64-33 roll call vote. Warren voted for the bill, but Sanders didn't. Then President Joe Biden signed the legislation the following month. Equity deals weren't a part of the final legislation. Last week, Sanders came out and supported Trump's then rumored agreement with Intel. Warren has indicated ongoing disagreement with the president on his policies. The president just saying he wants the public to have a stake in a major company isn't the same as having a real strategy to rein in stock buybacks, onshore jobs, and support long-term economic growth in America, she said. That part is the key part here. Okay, Elizabeth Warren is correct. This is her bread and butter issue, so it's not surprising. But this is one aspect where Elizabeth Warren is a important voice, okay? And she is 100% right, because getting any sort of state stake in a major company needs to come with requirements. And those requirements should be to stop stock buybacks altogether and to demand onshoring jobs, okay? And not just any kind of fucking job, but good paying jobs that have to be unionized. Now, of course, Trump is not going to do that. So that is where my criticism of Trump's initiative starts. But my criticism of Trump's initiative of demanding 10% ownership after releasing these grants to Intel, after all the grants that we've given to Intel already, is not the point of contention for me.
It's like picking winners and losers. You know, because Trump has personally negotiated this deal and gotten us 10% of Intel, he can't allow Intel to do worse. He needs to favor them for future government contracts. So that's the first part. But the second part is like with this statement. So actually I deleted the statement. I would say that if Intel, for example, whatever the corporate tax rate is, which should be higher, I agree. If Intel makes $100 million, right, and we tax 15%, if we have a goal, which is like Intel build something in America, bring American jobs, and at the same time, Intel grows to $200 million and we tax 15%, that is the return to the taxpayers of America. The return is that.
I think the main problem isn't taking stakes. It's taking stakes in one actor in an open industry. If they took stakes in multiple companies in the same industry, that'd be better, like a sovereign wealth fund. Fair. It's even better. I'm not going to fucking say that's a bad idea. I think that's a good idea. I think the best idea is nationalization, okay? The other problem is when the government takes stakes in companies, it means the government will continue to prop up failing companies. A socialized company could live with that, but this is different. No, I also understand that as well. The issue is this already happens, but with a more hands-off approach. That is the problem. Because like we already pick and choose winners all the fucking time. We already prop up failing companies all the fucking time. And the only issue is the only difference is we never demand anything in return. They take all the money and they, in many circumstances, just immediately engage in stock buybacks, which once again used to be considered market manipulation. It still is, by the way, but it used to be considered that and was illegal before the Reagan era. So That's what's frustrating about this. The failure story of the 21st century in economics is the government propping up assets and companies that should fail as a result of incompetence. I think we have a fundamental disagreement here. The fundamental disagreement that you and I have is that there is such a thing as a free market in the United States of America that actually thrives on competition and competitive governments in the same competitive corporations in the same sector that's making innovation thrive. I don't agree with that. I don't think that's real. I think we already do that with our subsidy structure, but we just do it at the behest of profit. Profit that obviously accumulates in the hands of very few people, and a competent government would take the initiative here and would utilize this to genuinely improve the labor force and would create good paying jobs. And it would be simply demanding more for the unlimited money faucet that we give companies anyway. That's how I feel.
Taxes. If you want to make a return.
This is also a silly conversation to have right now because, and I need to repeat this over and over again, I don't think Trump is going to do that anyway, okay? I do not think Trump is going to do that regardless. It's just like with the tariffs conversation. I am not immediately opposed to trade protectionism, okay? I am for trade protectionism. I am for tariffs. But the way Trump that was utilizing the tariffs was completely ridiculous, okay? And the same goes for what he is most likely going to do. He's not going to demand anything here, and the same profit interests are going to remain. There's not going to. I don't think there's going to be any sort of like onshoring that comes along with this, or any sort of like a demand that there would be no stock buybacks is going to come with this at all. It's just now he gets to pick and choose winners. And he'll beef up Intel's stock prices to the best of his ability, and then he'll say, "Oh, we're just paying off some of the debt." Now that he's got a piece of the taste too, he's probably going to try and do this a lot more frequently.
In a company, you raise the corporate tax rate so that they're all competing, and we get a piece of all of them. You don't pick one and grab 10% of just that one. You know what I'm saying? The taxes is how you get the return. Then you spend it on America. You can spend it on healthcare, you can spend it on whatever. I agree. I think the goals of what you want to spend it on are good. But the idea that you're supposed to seize it, I just find it to be less compelling. However, larger story, again, I won't say Bernie Sanders was a massive supporter of this. He just had one statement. Mainly it's a Trump idea. And Trump said to me, people like me, if you're a critic of this deal, why are stupid people unhappy? And I got owned. I realized I'm stupid. I'm stupid for being critical. And he doesn't only want to stop here. He has found this to be so successful, such a good idea, that he wants more deals like Intel's. He will make deals like Intel's all day long. And I think Trump truly doesn't even care about the long-term strategy. I think he just likes the deals. He likes CEOs coming in and being at his mercy and him able to boss them around.
No, I don't think that's the. I mean, yeah, as part of it, and that kind of like glazing of Trump actually gets a lot of mileage. That's the reason why even like competent and intelligent people like Tim Cook is sucking Trump's penis. Like, there's a reason Tim Cook is doing that, because he knows if he glazes Trump, he's gonna get benefits out of it. Having said that, however, I don't think that the primary focus of the Trump administration here is that Trump gets to feel good about making yet another deal. I think that the primary purpose of this, as I said already, is to forcibly bring manufacturing back to the United States with at least like one key corporation in this incredibly important sector for, as the Biden and the Trump administration both have openly admitted, for economic security and national security. That's it. I think that's the reason why. That's why he's doing this.
And I think he just likes doing these deals. They're all one-off, and I think he's just going to start grabbing American stakes in different companies. But The problem is, again, when you have this, you end up with a situation where the only way to win is to go through the president, to go through the government. Okay, you can't win.
Like, do you guys understand the silver lining that I'm seeing here? The silver lining that I'm seeing here is that, like, this opens up a world of new opportunities. Now that the veil has been pierced by someone who is capable of doing that, right? Erasing the previous norms. Like, this used to be an unconditional no. Bernie Sanders advocated for it. It was a no. It was just like not even it was a non-starter, right? It's a great precedent, in my opinion. I think it's a great fucking precedent in terms of pushing towards more state control, because state control already exists with the incentive structure that takes place within subsidies. But that's so hands off, and therefore all these companies that take in billions of dollars of subsidies actually then do whatever the fuck they want. They can bury the subsidies and not really improve their output in the way that the government wants, or they can just like engage in stock buybacks and improve the profit incentives for their shareholders. Like, this kind of shit is unacceptable. So having more government control over this process is not a bad thing. Okay?
By making the better product. You can't win by offering it at a cheaper price. You can only win by having the government put their thumb on the scale to your benefit. And I think that is a dangerous precedent, a dangerous long-term route to go. It's this real crony situation where you have to go to the mob boss to get your win. So he's planning many more deals, and he hopes to get as much as I can. I want to get the direct quote here. His new economic strategy is an attempt to get as much as I can. I don't see a long-term big strategy here. I'm just confused by it.
I do. I think the opportunities are endless. Not that Trump is going to do this, or not that Trump is even interested in this, but I do. When I saw this, I let's just say I wasn't instantly against it, and neither was Bernie, obviously, because it's like, it's just, if your company is fucking failing and you require government bailouts or you require government subsidization to continue your output, then I think it's perfectly valid for the government to say, all right, well, then we're taking ownership control. We're taking maybe 10% now, and who knows how many more percentages we'll take tomorrow. I think this is an important first step. If utilized by a competent left leadership, this would be an important first step in the direction of controlling key sectors and relinquishing control of key sectors into the hands of the American government.
So all this is to be said is that at the end of the day, there's not a lot of other options than Intel in America. So maybe it's a situation where you got to make do with what we got. Maybe that's the horse we have and we have to ride it. Intel sucks, but we can't get a new competitor in time, so fine, whatever. But I just want to say that this strategy of getting rid of the milestone plan with the grants that the CHIPS Act had and going to just buying 10% is...
Do it for health insurance now? No, fuck that. Health insurance should be abolished. Private healthcare should be illegal, I think. That's a totally separate thing.
Not even guaranteed to work. It's just more good money after bad. The problem is Intel is still a bad company. Trump will likely need to find more ways to support Intel, not wanting it to fail on his watch. And again, that's the quicksand you find yourself in when the government tries to pick a winner. Once you've bought a stake in the company, you can't let it fail because it's embarrassing. So now you have to throw more government money after this money pit, this failing bad company. And you end up in this
like, understand that, at least from my assessment, this already exists, right? This is literally how it goes. This is how it already works, but there is, I guess, like less hands-on control from the government, and it's done by way of lobbying, right? It's done through backroom deals. Like, because this already exists. This has existed for as long as the American economy has existed, okay? But now the government has a hands-on ownership stake over one company in exchange, ironically enough, for the grants. So if it already exists, then all you're doing in this process is like demanding more control and demanding an ownership stake or demanding like a significant stake over one of these companies.
Quagmire of lighting money on fire. Intel needs a lot of help, and the U.S. needs Intel. Maybe we do, maybe we don't, but now we're tied to them. And the first immediate reaction of Intel when they had to make a disclosure on this new stake is that it's probably going to hurt our sales. We're already doing bad, and this U.S. government stake is going to hurt our sales. Now, why would that hurt your sales? Well, here's why. Sales outside the U.S. are 76% of Intel's revenue. 30% come from China. China is no longer interested in buying Intel chips if they are 10% owned by the U.S. government. It's too risky. So instead of helping the company, it's likely going to, at least in the short to medium term, severely hurt them. Again, I find this whole concept poor. and I have some other things on Trump I want to talk about this week that I think are more.
No, this isn't communism, not even technically or remotely communism. This isn't even socialism. It is a modest social democratic proposal. If you look at everything that is like, I mean, it also depends on how they implement this or what demands they make of Intel. But if you look at anything that goes against like the current profit incentives as a degree of socialization, then this could be seen as that. Depending on, once again, what Trump's demands are from Intel or what the American government's demands are from Intel.
More serious. And I think this week I'm trying to make the case that, guys, this guy might be a bad president. This might sound crazy. He might be a bad president. Because it takes a while for economic stuff to make our lives worse, you can look at this and laugh. And I am laughing. But more of this will lead to I think a material reduction in American innovation and the amount of money going around in this country. I do agree with that. There's also some more serious stuff we're going to talk about later this week. But this for now is what I want to say. I think the U.S. buying 10% stakes in companies or more is a bad idea.
What distinguishes Trump's version of state capitalism is its randomness. This isn't like China deciding to subsidize solar panel production. Even if you don't like the idea of government exercising that much control, at least one understands the objective. Oh my God, Donald Trump is making people actually develop a better understanding of China and Chinese policies. That is fucking hilarious. Okay. All right. I don't even agree with that statement, for the record. I think that there is a reason for this. The reason why he went with Intel is not random. The reason why he went with Intel is because he wants to bring chip manufacturing, as Joe Biden also did, back to the United States of America, which is ironic because I used to always say, like, he's shitting on the CHIPS Act, he's shitting on the IRA. Meanwhile, that was, again, too little, too late, too marginal, and also riddled with the public-private partnership proposals that neoliberals love. But the reason why he's doing it is because, specifically to Intel, is because of chip manufacturing. They just see it as a major issue. They need to bring chip manufacturing to the United States of America. And I think that's what Trump is going to try to do, or he's going to continue doing that with Intel. But I think the issue is that he is going to fail because they don't actually want, or they have no way of doing that. They have no comprehension and no way of doing that because they don't have any fucking actual like pro-labor people in their administration. There's also not a lot of time. That's another issue. They might be cooked overall. A similar pattern emerges here with my criticisms of the tariffs. Do you understand? We're far too late to the game to make these sorts of changes. And even with the changes that we're making, like the people that are demanding these sorts of changes are not demanding any, they're not making any serious demands about improving the workplace conditions, for example. Because as I've said over and over again, there are jobs that are available. The problem is not that there aren't any jobs in this country. When people talk about like manufacturing jobs, the reason why they go back with rose-colored glasses and look at the 50s and 60s post-World War II boom of industry and manufacturing, the reason why they like those jobs is not because people just love working in a fucking factory. It's because of the benefits. It's because of the labor conditions. It's because of it's because like when you worked a job like that especially paired up with the GI Bill and things like that, you could just have a home. You could have a car. You could actually have one person in the family work at a fucking factory and be able to put multiple kids through college. Okay? It's not the job in and of itself that was what Americans actually fantasize about. It's all the fucking benefits, the pension, the union backed provisions that came with that kind of job. Okay? That's it. It was the security that came with it. It was the affordability of things that it came along with that. That was the reason. Yeah, motherfuckers used to have two families. You could make so much money working at a fucking factory that you could have a secret family in the nearby town. Think about that. That's insane. That's unheard of. Who do you know nowadays that's in that same age range that doesn't have multiple fucking roommates so they can literally give 50% of their immediate wages directly back to their landlords? It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Motherfuckers used to have secret families, bro. My point is, we already have jobs. We have jobs in this country right now. It's just that those jobs don't pay. They don't have the, you can't just like work at Starbucks or even do like Uber, for example, and then be able to have a house, be able to own a home, have a wife, have one earner in the household, and raise multiple kids. I worked in mission control at NASA. I couldn't afford to buy my own house. I mean, I know my brother is an aerospace and mechanical engineer for Boeing. Okay, I know. He ain't buying a house anytime soon either.